NSFW, what's the worst thing you have witnessed on a bachelorette party? Bride to be blowing a male stripper while everyone in her party were cheering her on, including her future mother-in-law. Louder cheers when he blew his load in her mouth. It's the future mother-in-law that made it super WTF. The groom's best friend, 24 years old, died a horrific death in a house fire weeks before the wedding. We were all crushed. How could the wedding proceed without Richie? He was supposed to be the best man. So we gathered at a friend's house where we made sausages and desserts for the wedding. And then retreated to a cabin in the woods on the property. About 15 of us spent hours drinking beer, smoking weed, alternately crying and laughing about Richie. It was like his unofficial wake. I know this all sounds so sad. And it was. But it was necessary. I think we all attended the wedding with a lot of weight lifted from our shoulders after spending the night before celebrating the missing guest. It was a hard night. And I still respect the groom for making his bachelor party about the one person who couldn't attend. Not really on par with worst things like I've read in the comments thus far, but was still pretty funny in retrospect. Our group arrived in Vegas for some pre-scheduled debauchery and drinking at a strip club. The groom's best man decides to get a dance in the champagne room. He comes back and we head out to gamble and drink some more before retiring to the hotel room. Next morning, while recovering from our collective hangovers, the best man's right eye was as red and puffy like a souffle. He told us the stripper used his face as washboard during his time with her. The doctor told him he had gotten crabs in his eyebrow somehow and they made their way down to his eye. Needless to say, he didn't play the part of best man. We still haven't allowed him to live that down. My buddy was at a party where they got the groom pass out drunk and got him on a plane to Kansas. This was the 70s, so no airport security. The groom came to 3 states from home with no wallet. The stripper was pregnant. Not oh she's got a little baby bump pregnant. She was flat out, oh god I hope she doesn't deliver during this dance pregnant. There were a few guys that were really into it too. Which is whatever. Everyone has their kinks. I was second choice for the best man. Which I didn't mind. Less work for me. So I wandered over to the actual best man, who I was friends with, and struck up a conversation. Me. Hey. This beer is great. And you did a great job with the food and liquor too. Him. Thanks man. Me. Sue. Did you notice the stripper is like 11 months pregnant? Him. Shut up. Turns out that he was trying to cut some expenses and found a friend. That knew a friend. That knew a friend. That knew of this girl that stripped really cheap. After she was done dancing, including the one-on-one dance with the groom, she started propositioning guys. Her and some of the guys would disappear randomly. I don't know exactly what happened and I never asked because I really didn't want to know. He brought the pitching machine to the wedding. At the bachelor party we had a stripper nicknamed the pitching machine that would shoot ping pong balls out of her hoo-ha. The best man really hit it off with her. Unbeknownst to everyone else at the time, the day of the wedding he showed up with the pitching machine. I watched my boss, covered in lube, being ridden around the club like a horse by a stripper with a belt around his neck acting as the reins. Safe to say our office dynamic has altered somewhat. I'd say my best friend's husband's bachelor party. We went to Vegas and got home from the club around 4 AM. We rode the elevator up with a hooker. Groom went to bed and 6 of the groomsmen took turns banging the hooker. I went to bed in another room and didn't participate in the shenanigans. Woke up at 8 AM to use condoms everywhere and a video of them all taking turns. Another groomsman walked in at 9 AM saying he won $800 on craps and needed to sleep because he'd done a ton of coke earlier and should probably get some sleep. One of the GFS of the groomsmen found out and told the others' wives. Wedding had great cake though. That guy with the coke and craps winnings. You should stay with him next time. Edit highest comment. My children must never know of their father this way. This was my brother's bachelor party. There was a group of about 16 of us who got a private room in a local STTY strip club. A guy who I'll call Ed showed up, but was not invited. He was a childhood friend of my brother. But as an adult Ed had some issues, like 5 kids from 4 different mothers, and general poor decision making. Anyway, within the first hour, 2 strippers start giving us a show. They are seemingly getting really into it and start 69ing each other vigorously. Ed proceeds to kneel behind the woman on top in the 69 and licks her ass. She screams to the giant bouncer they had stationed in the private room with us, "Jimmy, this guy just licked my asshole." Jimmy responds, "Hey, no asshole licking," and violently drags him out. Friend's bachelorette party heads to a grotty strip club, where a particularly sweaty and greased up male stripper takes a drink from the hands of one of the party, puts it on the stage and proceeds to do push-ups, dipping his dick into the drink. He'd also just put shaving cream all over himself for some reason. So there's big blobs of that and a film of grease all floating in this girl's rum and coke that this bloke has been dipping his knob in and out of. She takes it and downs it in one and licks around the inside of the glass. Nearly threw up. Edit. I know you would expect it to be whipped cream he was rubbing on himself, but unfortunately it was definitely shaving cream. I distinctly saw him bring out a can of Gillette and spray it all over his chest and crotch. The best man got piss drunk at breakfast and ate an entire banana without peeling it. And I've questioned if there is a god ever since. At a bachelorette party where the stripper dipped his dick in chocolate and went around to each woman expecting someone to give it a taste, everyone refused. I was in Vegas for a bachelor party about a month ago. We pulled up to a card table on Saturday night and found another group of guys who were there for a bachelor party, so we got to talking. We asked which one of them was the bachelor and they kinda laughed, then said, "Well, he got arrested earlier today. Apparently, he got arrested for having some fun powder at a day party and tried to fight security. They said they couldn't see him until Monday after he saw a judge, so they planned to continue with the party until they could see him. Ultimately, the dealer was this Russian woman with a thick ass accent was listening and said, 'Wait, he got arrested for cocaine? I thought this was Vegas. That's bullshit. I don't know what ended up happening with him, but that sucks. Damn, that blows.' When I left a wedding reception to go to another event, I asked my friends to watch out for my younger brother. My friends were drunk and they dared my brother to go knock on some limo's window that drove by. He did. Then he ran away. Then a bunch of girls opened the door and told him to come back. So he did. Then the limo drove off with my brother in it. It was a bachelorette party. My friends freaked out because they were supposed to watch my brother and he just hopped in some stranger's car that drove away. The girls in the car got my brother to eat a lifesaver off the bachelorette's nipple. Then they showed him a picture of the huge guy she was marrying the next day. He was scared for a week some guy was going to find him and beat him up. My friend died on his bachelor weekend. He fell out the cab at the end of the night and hit his head on the sidewalk. Cops put him in a drunk cell overnight. Turned out he had fractured his skull. They let him out in the morning, but he went into a coma and died a week later. Wedding was supposed to be 3 weeks later. We ended up having his funeral then. I am completely broken up by it still. Edit. Overwhelmed by the kind messages from so many folks. And grateful for the smart discussion about when to seek medical help. This started as a story about life at its worst. It ended as one about Reddit at its best. Thanks, friends. Have strippers come over. They are not strippers but escorts. Married dude FCKS escort as the other girl is getting slapped by ping pong paddles in the ass upstairs in a good fight. Next day I have to sit in car and drive home with guilt-stricken married guy. And that's why you never sleep with escorts at your bachelor party. My buddy's bachelor party was set to be pretty tame. No strip clubs or casinos or anything like that. He just wanted to get these massive burgers from the local burger joint walking distance from his condo and play Mario Kart 64. So after we had all stuffed our faces from these ridiculous Mondo burgers, We sat down, divvied up the teams, and each person would drain 1 beer per lap, and exchange controllers. Every single person ended up puking immediately once the toilet, sink, and kitchen sink were full. People were throwing up all over the place, running around looking for the least damaging spot to spew. It was obscene. At my bachelor party, I walked into a bar at the head of about 20 people and ordered some drinks. As I was waiting, I noticed a guy antagonizing a table full of people who were trying to ignore him. A bouncer tried to get him to leave and he lifted his shirt, revealing a holster. Someone, maybe me, yelled gun. And people started tackling the guy and punching the shit out of him. He was able to get his weapon out and fire, only his weapon was a 20-ounce can of bad deterrent pepper spray. He emptied the can into the air and everyone in the room started gasping and crying and screaming. Police rolled up just as this guy was being dragged to his feet. And throngs of screaming, crying people are pouring out of the bar. Just at this time, my dad and father-in-law arrived to see how the party was going. The first thing they saw, after the utter mayhem, was my younger brother choking out the words, "We didn't do it. Dad." I was dating for my friend's bachelor party. I jammed 4 drunk Marines into a 2013 Yaris. And we hit the road. Eventually we ended up at a seedy strip club. Things are going okay. Drinks were surprisingly affordable. And we were the only people in the joint. Eventually a different dancer stumbles through the door and is aggressively trying to get someone to buy a dance from her. Nobody is interested as she was definitely not on the A squad. She talks my buddy and his younger brother into seeing a trick and proceeds to without warning squirt a bottle of water up her vagina. And then spray it on them. Edit. No. Not the driftwood. They had all finished their service. We had an ongoing rule through the weekend that if you were holding a pint and someone managed to get a nominated coin into it, you had to down it immediately. It was, I think, a Brazilian real, whatever it was. It was a big old coin. Significant diameter and a good, sturdy thickness. Anyway, one of the chaps ended up swallowing the coin along with the beer. I'll never forget the look of realization on his face. And I can imagine the other look on his face a couple of days later. The groom being coerced, with money, to have one of the strippers pee on his face. Edit. It was only about $100 either. Most of the money had already been spent or the groom has a bit of a fetish. Edit 2. 0. There was another gent attending that had convinced himself that others would give him money to go through the same thing with the second stripper. He was a little distraught when no one offered him any money after his golden shower. Stripper number 2 had some very cloudy P2. Back in the 80s, Sosami friend's brother's bachelor party was the first I'd ever been to. And me and my friends were all about 19. It was held in a room over a sketchy volunteer firehouse. The skanky bartender doubled as the evening's entertainment. And at one point stripped naked, laid the bride's father on the floor, sat on his face, and then proceeded to blow the groom. It was far from anything erotic or cool, or just sad and nasty, and not the good nasty either. My friends and I were like, oh, this can't be good, and sorta noped out of there at that point. So I can't tell you what happened next. But I doubt anything good happened. Edit. Saw I also either been traveling for the past week and didn't see all the replies. Bordet el sorcery. I'm not sure if the bride ever found out, but the wedding happened. To no one's surprise, the marriage barely lasted a year before disintegrating. The father of the bride was shot and killed a year later by a sibling during a family dispute. So there were a lot of issues, to say the least. Had a friend hit $250k on a $5 slot machine at a Shreveport casino on his bachelor party 2 weeks before the ceremony. With his newfound wealth, he decided to ask his fiancée registered sign to sign a prenup. She refused. She had referred to it as our money from the first moment she heard the good news. And so, he walked away. Everyone hated him for it. He was practically excommunicated from all our social circles. 10 years later and she's filed bankruptcy twice. In hindsight he made the right decision. Girl I went to high school with didn't want her husband to have some random stripper at his party that will probably give him some disease. So instead she got her little sister, 20 at the time, to dance at the party instead. Not because she could trust her sister to not screw her husband, but because she knew her sister didn't have any diseases. Yeah. Little sister stripped. Then gave him a BJ. Then got on top and FK'd him. In front of all the other guys. We just watched in silence. It wasn't erotic, but more of a curiosity. Buddy of mine went old school and had his bachelor party the night before the wedding. Right around 1 AM I get a call from my husband, who was a groomsman. Babe, you need to come get us. Now. Why? Eric got punched by a stripper. The groom had a large T-shaped bruise right above his eye where the girl's ring hit him. Next day it was worse. Once again got a call for aid from the husband 15 minutes before the ceremony. The date that was the best makeup I've ever done. Edit. To answer several questions. T-shaped bruise. As in cross-shaped. As in Jesus. She was wearing a crucifix ring. Why did he get punched? Stripper 1 was going after stripper 2 who was trying to steal stripper 1's tips. Very drunk groom dodged. The wrong way. Bro I can confirm no. Security footage exists and I saw it sober. No I don't have access and cannot post it. How did I see it? Stripper 2 pressed charges on stripper 1. The bachelor party was too drunk to be useful and identify each other in the footage. So I did. Why did I get involved? I was the maid of honor. So several years ago, while at his bachelor party, my buddy, the groom, got it on with a stripper. Shortly after getting married, he found out his wife, at her bachelorette party, had slept with a male stripper. Here's where it gets crazy. Fast forward a few years and they are still together. On vacation somewhere. And they run into the guy who had FK'd my buddy's wife at her bachelorette party. He had gotten married. His wife, the stripper who FK'd my buddy at his bachelor party. Apparently they were both attending the same college at the time when my buddy was getting married. And they were both doing side jobs to make extra cash. On mine right now. Nothing crazy but my baby sister brought a crock pot. It ain't a party till someone whips out a crock pot. Stripper ran out of whipped cream to put on her bits. We started grabbing random condiments like mayonnaise and ketchup. She rubbed the ketchup all over her snatch and she got weird. She had a panic attack and ran to the bathroom then disappeared. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. Further recollections. I'm fairly certain she was coming down from her latest pick-me-up and it all hit her when she looked down and saw her nether regions smothered in ketchup while a gang of drunken idiots laugh at her in the wee hours of the morning. That's got to be someone's rock bottom. There were strippers who came to the hotel room and were getting most of the guys super horny. They left and everyone got super drunk and people passed out. I was laying down but still awake when I noticed her head bobbing up and down. I slowly turn and open my eyes and the groom is blowing the best man. The best man taps his shoulder and gives a no face and the groom doesn't stop. Then after the best man is done coming, the groom takes the best man's dick and makes sure he got all the cum by licking what was left of it off of his dick. I will never forget that image. The best man then pulls up his pants and they go to sleep. I mean while I'm freaking out in my head while I am laying there. I didn't sleep. Didn't tell anyone about it until now. I didn't see it. But my co-worker told me about it. His brother was getting married and they hired some stripper hooker for the night. He said cut to a couple hours later and they all were in a circle with their dicks out. She's blowing them one after the other. I think what made the story much more memorable to me was how elated he was to tell me. With a big smile on his face laughing. I could be totally off here but I think I'd have a tough time keeping an erection when I'm up against Steve from the mailroom's hairy knees. I'm also curious as to how the stripper can do this. I mean, she is either really good at making guys come fast, isn't doing it to completion, or has built up the dick sucking muscles in her face to the point where they just don't get tired quickly. The strippers started fight each other and pulled out a gun, lol. We had to kick them out and expedite our party bus plans. Where the hell was she keeping a gun? He asked.